One of the most effective ways that a city can work to keep its businesses thriving is through effective long-term planning and by reaching out and actually communicating with our local businesses. We're going to hear from Mindy Kostelik and Marie Ellis from the St. Paul Chamber of Commerce to discuss the city's business engagement program. Mindy has passionately served the East Metro business community for nearly 10 years on the staff at the St. Paul Area Chamber. Mindy heads membership recruitment and retention efforts for the Chamber and is always looking for innovative ways to connect members and partners with opportunities that positively impact the business community. Mindy serves on the board of the American Lung Association and St. Paul's Beyond the Yellow Ribbon Steering Committee, and is a past club officer of the Rotary Club of St. Paul. She is also a proud alumna of Leadership St. Paul. Marie spearheads the Chamber's relationships with municipalities and lobbies for increased economic development, transit, and other pro-business issues in the East Metro. Marie previously worked as an immigration attorney and a lobbyist for Catholic Charities, focusing on issues most urgent for people experiencing poverty. She holds an undergraduate degree from Concordia College in Moorhead and a law degree from the University of St. Thomas. Please welcome up Mindy Kostelik and Marie Ellis from the St. Paul Area Chamber.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. What an awesome room. It's so great to be here. Thank you so much for having us. As we get started here, we want to provide just a little bit of perspective on who the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce is. We've been in existence for more than 150 years, and we've got a rich history as a business advocacy organization. So really at our core, we focus on policy making and making sure that there is a healthy and robust business climate. And while we are the St. Paul Area Chamber, things that happen in St. Paul are very important to us. And equally as important is the activity that's happening in the suburban marketplace. So we are just thrilled to be here today. The St. Paul Area Chamber, in addition to advocacy, is very rich on programming. We find that small businesses and mid-sized businesses are very interested in coming together and having conversations around, what is going on in business. And we produce more than 125 events each year to facilitate those conversations. Those range from structured networking breakfasts, we do luncheons, after hours, so there's plenty of ways to plug into the conversation. And we also have a charitable foundation through which we run our St. Paul Leadership Program. There are lots of alumni in that program. We're in our 38th year. And that is really a great way to get involved and take a deeper dive into the East Metro to understand how local government works, how education and business play together. So that program is called Leadership St. Paul, and then we also partner with the city's Right Track program, and the core of that is really in creating paid internships for local high school youth, because we know that getting kids connected to the business community leads to incredible things for our future workforce. Again, we want to thank the City of Maplewood for entrusting us in the partnership in the business retention and expansion work. We've done this work in a few other communities, so it's really been an honor to start to collaborate with the City of Maplewood, and we want to commend them for recognizing the importance in doing that and having that really strong relationship with the businesses in the community. So thanks again for allowing us to do that. At our recent political leadership luncheon, the city was recognized for its efforts with the Rice and Larpenter visioning. So again, congratulations to the partners on that project, including Ramsey County, Maplewood, and St. Paul and Roseville. So it's a great collaborative effort, and again reminds us that as we work together, great things happen for us here in the region. So at its core, business retention and expansion work is an economic development strategy whereby we proactively go out and engage with businesses for conversation around, where are we thriving in the business community? Where are we challenged? And really talking about specific businesses and what those issues are. And as we approached the aggressive plan to go out and sit down with 25 businesses, we sat back and thought, what are we looking to accomplish? And really it comes down to gaining insight into key businesses that really are in the high wage, high growth sectors, because that is where the future workforce is. And so understanding what those businesses are. And we wanted to set forth an opportunity to ensure that open issues relating to any connection point to local city government could be addressed. So for any businesses that have concerns about how to access local government, whether that's through the city council, through the city staff, through the different programming that the city offers, it's a conversation to take away the, to really just put a face to the name and bring that to businesses and reinforce how important business is in this community. Also through the BRE visits, we wanted to create a baseline measurement of business satisfaction with the city and the state of business here in the East Metro region. Who participated in the effort? Mayor Slawick and the city staff, Housing and Economic Development Commission members, city ambassadors, and the chamber staff. Again, we met with 25 businesses over the course of the last several months. And those businesses really were a diverse cross-section of for-profit businesses, not-for-profit, healthcare, manufacturing, retail, and some of the key major employers in the area.
We've got a little bit of data up here for you. There's much more in the reports that you all have on your table, but I wanted to pull this out because I think there's something particularly interesting in the slide on the left, or the graph on the left. That dark green circle is the people who work in Maplewood, and the light green is people who live in Maplewood. So as you can see, Maplewood has a very large non-resident population. I think that's helpful to think about as we talk about the comp plan, and as Rita was talking about, this isn't about just the people who live in Maplewood, but you have a lot of people coming into Maplewood every day to work. The graph on the right is not particularly interesting because it actually just shows that a lot of the folks who are migrating for work are migrating to the west and heading to Minneapolis. But it's the coolest looking slide I've ever made, so there you go. All right, let's talk about the survey. So like Mindy said, there were 3 different ways that we gathered information for this report. We did the 25 visits with businesses. We then sent all 25 of those businesses a follow-up survey, and that's in your appendix in the back of the report. So you can look exactly at the questions we asked and the answers that we got. And then we also did some of the data work that I showed on the last slide, and that's in your packets. Let's look at these top 3 bullets and just pause to think about how great this is. In Maplewood, over 84% of businesses said sales are stable and increasing. They are planning to maintain or add jobs in the next year, and they plan to renovate or make a major purchase in the next 2 years. That is huge. Part of the reason we do this work is to create a baseline, and the problem is we don't have one previously. So we can't go back to a survey 5 or 10 years ago and look at what those numbers were, but I think we can all assume that if we looked at a survey from, say, 2007, these numbers would be much, much lower. So this is fantastic, and we should be happy with that. On the 4th point there, a lot of businesses are having difficulty filling positions. It's something Rita already mentioned, and it's something, I think it's the overall main theme we heard in these visits was with workforce issues. So there's a disconnect between what people are being trained to do in school and then what the marketplace is looking for them to do as an employer. I also should mention, actually I forgot a note on those top 3. We were targeting, as Mindy said, the high growth sectors. So I think those numbers are skewed a little bit higher than if we had surveyed all businesses in Maplewood, but it's still very worthy of noting. 76% of your businesses that were surveyed identify as being in Maplewood over identify as being in St. Paul or Minnesota or the Twin Cities, which is really great. There's definitely an opportunity to improve access to transit. I love hearing that we have a color that is the purple line. And actually just yesterday I was talking to somebody from Ramsey County Regional Rail Authority, and he was mentioning a different project as we were talking about some things, and he mentioned the purple line in DC. And I said, you don't hear about purple that much, right? Every city has blue and green and yellow and whatever, red. There's no purple. So it's great, purple and gold. It's very Vikings. I love it. The last point, I think, is particularly important. People overwhelmingly think that the city's attitude towards business is favorable. That is not the case with all of your neighbors. That is huge, and I think it is something that is shown by the simple fact that the city undertook these efforts. That's fantastic. I work a lot with businesses in the city of St. Paul as well, and I think if we were to survey them on the city's attitude towards business, it would be significantly lower. So city staff and electeds, give yourself a little pat on the back. It's fantastic. Oh, and one thing I wanted to add too, Rita mentioned in the comp plan there will be a chapter on economic development. That's not required by the Metropolitan Council, and some cities choose not to include economic development as a chapter. So just the fact that you're including it and you recognize economic development as being a major piece in your development is huge.
When we look at the key findings through all of the business retention visits that we did, like Marie said, the business climate is very favorable here, and we really appreciate the fact that people are open to conversation and really shared their thoughts with us where there are challenges, and these visits opened up an opportunity for the city to address those challenges and really work collaboratively. But one of the trends that we realized during the visits is that small businesses are really in growth mode in Maplewood. Many of our small business owners own their properties and are looking at what the expansion opportunities are, and really focused on staying within Maplewood, looking at Ramsey County, and really that focus on the East Metro. So it's really great to hear that businesses want to continue to stay located here and understand what those expansion opportunities are. And the city's been really good about working with the businesses on what those expansion opportunities may look like. One of the businesses we met with was Junior Achievement. Junior Achievement has announced that they are moving outside of Maplewood. Transit was a definite factor in that move. And Junior Achievement couldn't say enough about how incredible it was to be located in Maplewood for the past many, many years. Right now, their business is changing, and so they're forced to evolve with that. And they need to really be right on the transit line. They're moving to the Midway area. And that, again, is just a case where business is evolving and they're adapting to that. So they are thrilled to have been a Maplewood resident in the business sense for many years. On the police and fire note, really, we couldn't find anybody that didn't think that you guys are doing an incredible job. So really, hats off. Thank you. Yes. Recognizing that we're in new leadership and we've had some outstanding leadership over the years, and let's face it, crime happens, and businesses talked about the fact that when crime happens, they know who to turn to, and that the police and fire, there was a lot of focus on police with public safety, and that the police department is very responsive, not only in the timely nature in terms of calls, but then also in assessing what the public safety risks are at the business and helping to reduce what those risks are and talk about best practices to ensure the safety of people that are visiting the businesses and the employees that are working in those businesses every day. So again, kudos to our fire and public safety officials in that area. More key findings. We've talked about transit. Everybody knows that people aren't always going to be driving their cars. And so, like Rita mentioned, we need to talk about, the modes in which we're accustomed to working, and then looking forward into the future and what those transit opportunities look like. Maplewood businesses cite that traffic is not a major problem, so that's really good news because some other areas traffic is a problem, and the continued conversation around the Gold Line and what that development will do for both residents, businesses, it creates a lot of opportunity. So as that conversation progresses forward, transit is something that business is very, very interested in. When we talk about workforce, it's one theme that continued to rise to the top is that this notion of a four-year degree is not the only path to success. And there's a social norm in which the four-year degree has been something that people have talked about for years, and that's the expectation. And many of the businesses in Maplewood challenged us to really work on the idea that there are other opportunities to reach career success, and that specific training in the trades is one of those great options. And so it was really refreshing to hear all that the school districts are doing to support those efforts and really work with the kids at a younger age to identify where their interests lie, and then exposing them to the opportunities that are in the field. It might be down the path of a four-way degree, it might be down two-year technical training, and looking at what all those opportunities are in the trade, because those jobs are continuing to be difficult to fill. And some of the on-the-job training that's happened over the years is now happening in terms of training earlier on. And our local colleges, universities, we've got Century College in the room and St. Paul College. They offer great training and are working very collaboratively with businesses to identify where the job opportunities are and then aligning that training. So again, a great demonstration of partnership and evolving to what the business needs are here right in the city of Maplewood. Another thing that we found is that businesses clearly want to continue engaging with local government. And so in partnership with the city of Maplewood, we launched our first Maplewood Business Council back in March. It was very well received. We've had 3 business councils since. That will continue to be a quarterly opportunity to get together and talk about topics of interest to the business community. We launched the same in Roseville about 5 years ago, and so it's really interesting to compare and contrast where we are now in Maplewood and where we were in Roseville. And I can promise you that as we get used to the schedule, and it's going to be great, because in Roseville we've got 30 business leaders at least each month that get together to talk about all of the localized issues, what is happening in our community. It's an opportunity to meet your neighbors and talk about ways to work together and to solve the challenges that we all face. So the Business Council is a great avenue to do that, and we thank the city of Maplewood for partnering with us on that.
I'm just going to wrap up with our recommendations for the city, and these are spelled out quite a bit more in your packets, so we've boiled them down here. But to continue relationships with community and technical colleges, we've already focused on the fact that this is an issue that came up in most of the visits, and that these relationships are already happening, but they can be strengthened, and there can be more networking between the businesses and the schools. Continuing the BRE work, I think that this has been a great thing for the city. It's definitely been great for businesses. It's a way for the city to learn what's happening with businesses and to solve some of the problems before they become unsolvable. To continue that Maplewood Business Council, which Mindy talked about. And finally, to continue supporting increased transit. I really liked the phrase that was used earlier, the transportation evolution that is happening. And I think we definitely heard from businesses that they're interested in more transit, and some specifics. The ways people get from the bus stop to the business isn't always the safest. So it's not just about building new lines, but about figuring how to make transit users be able to get to certain businesses. I will just finish up by saying that on behalf of the Maplewood businesses, we want to really thank the City Council and city leadership for undertaking this effort and for engaging more with businesses. Thank you very much.